Hi guys, welcome back to the first of what I hope to be a series of videos. Doing a Postman clone. This will be a pretty sizable project, but also not a huge project. I thought it would be a good size or good scale to do a build from start to finish. So here's what I hope the UI will look like. So this is something I created um, in 10 minutes today. So it's not something, it's something we'll just base our design off of, but it's not going to be the end product. The end product will probably have more features and it'll look differently. This is just something to wrap your head around what we're going to be building. If you've never used Postman, by the way, here is what it looks like. It's just an interface like this where you can test APIs here. You have a tab container, and then you can choose any HTTP method. You enter your URL. You could enter your URL parameters, headers, body, anything else you might need. I work on a lot of integrations with other software, and I always need to use Postman or some other tool to test my endpoints or test APIs outside of Ignition, and I thought it would be handy to have this sort of project in one of our main projects. So hopefully this will be useful. I think we're going to cover a lot of different topics. We're going to deal with design, but also database design and saving stuff to the database, querying stuff. So hopefully it'll be a comprehensive project that we can all learn from. Most of this stuff here, I might be one video or one step ahead of what the videos are going to show, but I don't have a full project already built out, and I'm not following a plan or anything like that. So it's going to be a learning process for me as well. I want to keep it as accurate to what a developer might go through as possible. I don't want to have it all built out beforehand, because that's usually not how we develop these projects. We don't have everything pre-built and pre-planned. You just kind of have to go for it once you feel like you have enough information. So that's what we're going to be doing here. So this is what the UI will look like. By the end of this video, we're going to have a view built. I'll show you what it looks like. For now, it's very ugly compared to our UI here, markup, whatever you want to call this. But it has most of our main components. We will have a tab container here where you can do multiple requests at one time, or you can have multiple requests at one time, just like Postman here. You can create more, so you can have a GET request, and this one can be a post. This can be a delete, whatever you want. So we are going to mimic that behavior with this tab container here. We have a drop down. There's no methods, there's no options here in the drop down yet. We have a URL text area, we have a button, and then we have another tab container for our URL parameters, any header values, and the body of the request. I'm not sure if this will stay as a table. And then we have a response. This is for now a markdown component here, and it returns our response. Okay, so that's about all I have to show you for now, and let's go ahead and get started. I think it'd be a good idea to create a new project for this, because I could see us in the future using a custom theme that we extend from the light theme or the dark theme. It doesn't really matter, but I can see us using a custom theme because we will be adding a lot of CSS to make our project look like this here. Oops, like this. So the default perspective components, you won't get a look like this. So we will be adding CSS, and the easier way to do it, as people mentioned in the forum, is not to modify or append to the CSS files in the default theme, but to just add a new theme that extends light or dark CSS or any of the other themes that Ignition ships with. Okay, enough talking. Let's create a new project. You can call it whatever you want. A Postman like tool. Postman used to be a browser tool, and then they made it an application, and now it's back. You can use it as a browser tool again. So this might be redundant, but I think it's still a good project to build from start to finish. Okay, user source. we don't have any other user sources. Default database. I'm going to set to this one here because we will need a database. We might need a database if we want to have features such as saving requests, so you can come back and rerun the same request. Okay, let's create the new project here. Okay, so the first thing I want to do here in my views is to create a new folder. We can call this, actually, yeah, main, and then we can have another folder called embedded. We will have embedded views. So under views, let's create, actually, under embedded, let's create a view. This is where we will be working today. And as I said there in the beginning, we're going to be working on this component here where my arrow is. So this will be a tab container perspective component. And we're going to be working here inside this tab container. This top bar, the header, will be a docked element or docked component. We'll work on this probably next time. This will also be a dock that'll open and close. This doesn't really have anything to do with this project, neither does this header, but I still thought it would be good to create a full project including headers and navigation bars. This will be the tabbed container, and then all of this here, all of this content that changes when you switch the tab here, it'll be an embedded view, and we're going to work on this view that'll get embedded over and over, because when you hit request one or test or nav, or whenever you create a new tab here, new request, it's going to have all the same fields, but like you'll choose maybe a different HTTP method, or it'll be a different URL you'll be retrieving resources from. So we're going to work on, like I said, from this HTTP method all the way to this corner, this square here. It'll make more sense once we start working on it. So let's call it request, and we'll make a flex container view. We won't add a URL yet. We might in the future. Okay. Well, actually, let's add a URL. That way we can see it in the browser, completely spaced. Okay. Page URL primary view will be this request. Okay, so let's go ahead and just make sure we can launch this session. Oh, okay, there we go. Okay, let's go back in here into my request window, and let's take a look once again at this UI layout I already made. So what I'm thinking we can do, I wish I had a drawing tool. Okay, I'll do it this way. Here's how I'm thinking we can do the layout. This, all of this here, so the full container all the way down. Oops. I want to make it a column. So from here all the way down, this will be a column container, and then inside the column container we're going to have rows. So I'm thinking to have this as a row, this as a row, and then the response as a row. So let's go ahead and start with that. So we'll have a container, which we already have, this root container. Let's set it to a column direction, or make sure it's set to column direction. And then let's drag on three row containers. So if we go back to my messy drawing, I actually have a drawing pad somewhere, but it's not plugged in right now. Okay, let's see. There we go. We have a pencil now, so we can draw if we need to. But let's go ahead and add the 3 row containers. So row flex, we'll have 3 of them. So this first one here will be about 60 pixels, it's not going to grow and shrink in size, but these second two will just fill the rest of the space. So let's go ahead and set the basis for, let's turn off grow and shrink and set the basis for the top container to 60, or the top container to 60. Let's set this one to grow and this bottom one also to grow, and then it'll share the remainder of the space. Okay, so inside this top row, we're going to have so we can have a column here. So inside the row, we can have purple. We have one column. Wow, this is not much better. Another column. And then a third, we can have either another column or we can just add our button. So inside the top row, we're going to have 1, 2, and then 3 columns. My drawing skills are terrible. Okay. So let's add column, flex container. Let's add another one. And I think we don't need to put the button in a container. If we do, we can always do that later. Let's set this first one here. I think 200 pixels looks fine. And inside the column container, let's add a label. We can set the text here just so we remember. And then a drop down. Drop down here. Inside the second container, we want another label. And then we also want a text field. And then this container here, the second one, the middle one, we'll set to grow. Oops. Okay. Let me resize this, that way I can see it without scrolling. There we go. So this looks pretty ugly right now, but this is kind of the layout we want. So if we go back to our UI here, so we have the components of this top row completed. And then let's take a look at this second row. Inside the second row, we want another tabbed container for the parameters, the header values, and the body. And this one, I think we'll set this one to modern. You'll see what I mean here. And then we'll want a table as well to add these query parameters. And then as we switch the tab, we'll have tables for header values, keys and values, and body, anything you want to pass into the body of your request. Okay, so let's work on the second row here. Inside the second row, let's add a tab container. And we could have just put the tab container here. We don't need this container. It's okay. So let's set this to grow, fill the width. Just so this is more clear, we have params. Here we have headers, header. What did I call it here? Headers. And the last one will be body. Body. And let's set it to modern. That way it looks more like our layout here. And then for each of the views, we'll have a table. So if we go to params and drag a component, let's do table. Headers, we also want a table. Body, we want a table as well, I believe. Let me take a look at Postman here. When we have body, we're not going to have this, I forgot what this component is called. Oh, radio group. We're just going to have JSON here. We'll pass, if we're passing in a body of a request, for example, API key. This might be a common thing you pass. something like this. Do we want it as a table? We can have it as a markdown, as a text area. We'll deal with this later. What component exactly? I need to think about this more. I'll look into some common use cases for the body. The body is very common to have. So this, I'm not sure if we'll have a table in the end, but parameters and headers kind of fit nicely for this scenario. Okay, and then our last one here, our last row, let's add a label. Our last row here, let's set it to column. Our last container, set it to column. Let's add a label. And then let's add, I think we want to add markdown. Okay. And let's make sure this grows. Okay. There we go. This will be, let's set this label text response. This button, we can call it send. Let's just relabel some stuff. This label we'll call URL. Okay. I wonder if we can add. Let me try this. This should work in Markdown, JSON. And then we can have an object. 1, 2, 3, 4. Hello. Okay, that's fine. It doesn't have the coloring that I was expecting, but I don't know why I was expecting that. That looks fine. This is how the response will look like. I want to add color. So like in Postman, you can see it's color coded. Let me actually run a request. I'll show you what Postman does if you're not familiar with APIs. Found this really cool service. It's a KAAS, Kanye as a service. Let's copy this URL here. If you paste it in, we have this request and it's color coded. You see what the key is here clearly, and you see what the value is. Okay, enough Kanye for me. Let's go ahead and save this. Okay, and then let's go back. Oh, too far. Let's go back here. We have our ugly view. We're going to change this and make it look like this. My goal is to get as close as possible to this look here, even though this isn't perfect, but it does look a lot better than our default view here. One last thing I want to do today is to rename some stuff. First of all, it'll be easier to find containers and whatnot. So we can call this flex top. We can call this flex params. Yeah, and then the bottom one we can call this flex response. Okay, inside flex top we're just going to call this flex method. This is a naming convention I follow. You don't need to. I usually prepend my name with a component type. So like if it's a flex container, I'll call it flex whatever. So here I'll call this flex URL. And for example, if I want to relabel or rename a label or a button, I'll call this label URL label. And then button here, I can do button send. It just helps me to find if I ever need to drill down and find certain components, like here, table params. I don't think this last table will stay, but we'll rename it anyway for now. Table headers. Oh, table headers. Okay, interesting. I'm not sure why I can't rename. Anyway, I don't know why that's a problem. Okay, so the last thing I wanted to do, as I said earlier, I want to create this component here, this other tabbed container where the view we just built will be an embedded view. So let's go ahead and do that now. Inside, we can do main. Yeah, let's add a new view inside of main, and let's make it a flex container and call it requests or something like that. Let's add a page URL, that way we can see it in the browser. And then in here, we want to drag on a tab container. Let's do a classic tab container, that way it kind of follows the Postman look and feel. All right, so here we can have some tabs. Request 1. You can create these tabs programmatically. I wish we had this button here like we have in the designer, and this X here. I'm going to try to replicate this because we want to create these tabs in the runtime in the browser, like you can in the designer until you run. So when it's in designer mode, you can create tabs from here. Okay, and then in here we can have an embedded view. And then let's configure our path here to embedded request. All right, there we go. And then let's save this and go to requests. There we go. We can see our tab here. We can see our data collection fields. None of this is filled out. We're going to work on all of these things here. Adding parameters, adding header values, adding the body of the request, and then we're going to format all of this and make it look really nice. I think in the next video we're going to also work on the header and on the side nav, but I'll see. I'm pretty happy, and I'm pretty set on this layout here. I think it'll work, the nesting of the containers and how everything is laid out. I think when we grow and shrink, it'll kind of rearrange itself nicely, and it should fit different size screens. Okay, that's about all I have for you guys today. This is not pretty, like I said, but this is kind of along the final destination. Sometime in the future, we should have a page that looks like this, which is exciting. I want to work on something that looks nice. Big hat tip to Matt for pointing out to use Adobe XD and to use the Spectrum design system. I've built this view. I know it's not the most beautiful looking page, but it took me about 5 to 10 minutes to build this morning, because you download these UI packs here. Let me show you this. So I have a plugin for Spectrum, and then it comes with its components, and then you pretty much just drag on this component, rearrange it how you want, and you have snap to grids. So it makes it really easy to design views, and I found that if you have something you're designing or you're working towards, it's much easier to look at a page and design it than it is to keep everything in your head and try to design something that looks nice. Okay, that's about all I have for you guys today. I'm excited for this series of videos. Hopefully it'll be informative. Hopefully we'll all learn something. Thank you for watching, and thank you for continuing to support this channel, both by buying books and just watching my content. I'll see you guys in the next video.